Good afternoon. I'm John Crompton, a member of the Welsh Mills Society, and I'm pleased to have this opportunity of providing a snapshot of our activities and of the archives we both find and produce. The Society's aims are to study, record, interpret and publicise the wind and water mills of Wales, to advise on their preservation and to encourage working millers. Wind and water mills were once important components of every community, and water power was used by many Welsh industries, from woolens manufacture to metal mining and slate quarrying. Yet the written records of such activities are often obscure or absent. Frequently, the evidence has to be found on the ground, using the techniques of industrial archaeology. And whilst historical documents such as maps and old photographs are valuable, the work of Society members in recording and interpreting mills is producing new material to add to the archive. I begin with something very modern, a satellite image taken from the National Library of Scotland's online map collection of part of Ynys Môn, Anglesey, with Moeltraeth Sands, the village of Moeltraeth, and the railway to Holyhead. Moving northwest for a closer look, we have the railway, a lane providing access to fields, and a small but dense wood, which hides a water-powered corn mill, Mewnwelediad, with its pond, sluice and tailrace. This was an estate mill belonging to the Bedorgan estate, and estate records in local archives or the National Library can sometimes be useful in piecing together the history of mills. I first saw this mill and took this photograph in 1975. The water wheels and wooden buckets had rotted away and the wooden maunder was collapsing, but inside everything was complete. I last saw it just 2 years ago, roofless and with the millstones and gears collapsing in a heap. I wish I'd made a more detailed record years ago. Historic Ordnance Survey maps are an invaluable archive for mill researchers. Here are two more examples from Anglesey. The Pandy fulling mill had been a corn mill, mewnwelediad, with an internal water wheel, the water passing through this slot in the rear wall, which here is being made into a window. At Cymerwch, the building shown to the south of the large mill pond on the 1889 map has disappeared, leaving just the outline of the wheel pit. You can find details of 51 watermill sites recorded by members in Anglesey on the National Monuments Records for Wales online database, cadwraeth. Historic maps can be found in county record offices, at the Royal Commission Search Room in Aberystwyth, and on the National Library of Scotland's online map collection. Old photographs of mills are rare. This is a 1920s postcard of Mewnwelediad, Anglesey. The map demonstrates the layout of the site, and the tide map, 1845 in this parish of Llandegfan, names the mill as fewn in the ownership of John Price Esquire and occupied by Edward Davis. Tide maps and apportionments have been digitised by the National Library of Wales and can be accessed online. All the buildings at Cadwraeth have been demolished and replaced by a modern house. Once identified, mills can be recorded by photography and survey. Mewnwelediad, again on Anglesey, was a two-storey mill with office, drying kiln and mill in one long building, and I made a full survey of the building and machinery in 1975. The mill had been abandoned partway through a refit after 3 pairs of new millstones had been fitted, but before the wheel had been repaired. The drive to the new stones had, unusually, been changed by moving the great spare wheel up the upright shaft so that the upper runner stones were to be turned from above. But by 2009, the mill had been converted to a house, the machinery had gone, and the only remaining internal evidence was a slot in the wall where the great spur wheel used to run before it was raised to its new position. Anglesey is more famous for its windmills than for its watermills, and especially for Mewnwelediad, restored by the County Council between 1981 and 84, and Wales's only working windmill. I first saw it in 1975, still with its sail stocks, but without its cap, and with its machinery hanging precariously through its rotting floors. The earliest list of Anglesey windmills was made by Rex Wales, who became the acknowledged experts on windmills across Britain and everywhere. I tracked down a diary of his flying visit to the island at Easter 1929 in the archives of the Science Museum, and this is a transcript of his record for Easter Sunday, March the 31st. Unhappy about the late breakfast at his hotel, he spent the rest of the morning at Mewnwelediad, finding much to see. In the afternoon, he visited Cymdeithas Melinau Cymru and 12 stumps, machinery having been removed from these mills, of which Mewnwelediad Cymru was and still is the largest. From his diary and his other writings and lists, I have mapped his 3-day journey, during which he recorded 35 windmills. The Rex Wales archive has now been transferred from the Science Museum to the Mills Archive at Reading. Rex spent a lot of time at Mewnwelediad, unique in that it had a water wheel in the basement and could be driven by either wind or water. His photographs, together one of my own, taken in 1975 after the interior had been gutted by fire, and with the archaeological record made by conversion in 2003-04, has enabled one of our Welsh Mills Society members, John Crompton, to make an accurate and detailed 3-dimensional computer-aided record of the mill. Examination of the large-scale historic ordnance survey maps for the whole of Wales has identified more than 2,800 sites where water or wind power have been harnessed. Here is a map of the old county of Mewnwelediad, now part of Gwynedd, recording the use of water power in so many different industries. Water wheels which drove slate mills, marked on the map by purple circles, make the slate quarrying areas of Blaenfestiniog in the north and the Corrius area in the south stand out. Water wheels driving crushing mills and gold separation mills, indicated by gold crosses, mark the extent of the once busy Dolgellau gold mining belt. Further south, in Cymdeithas in Ceredigion, was once an important centre for the Welsh flannels industry. The 2 rivers, Ferry and Cyflym, powered 7 woolen mills as well as 2 corn mills. Merry and Coombe mills closed in the early 1980s and remained empty and derelict. Lower Mill and Melinau have been converted to dwellings. Bridge factory, whose water supply was brought on wooden launders through a siphon under the road, has lost its upper story and half its length, and lives on as two houses. Coilen Mill is buried in ivy, but an earlier photograph shows the 24-foot water wheel with its shrouds, outer rims, cast in Aberystwyth by Ellis and Company in 1891. Its hub, centre of the wheel, was cast in Dublin. Wheel makers sometimes place names and dates on their castings, and mapping where named wheels have been recorded in relation to where they were made provides an interesting insight into trading areas around the towns of Wales in the 19th century. One interesting item found in Coilen Mill was a ledger recording some of the mill's trade in the 1920s and 30s. It seems that there was very little manufacturing, but Mr. Lewis Morris, the owner, had several sidelines. As a Talibont electricity supply, he installed electric lighting to the church, chapel, and local shops and houses, and supplied power from a water turbine-driven generator which still sits in his former garden. He also supplied radios and their batteries and aerials. He serviced cars and ran a taxi service. One account includes 2 chickens as part payment. The ledger is now available at Ceredigion Archives in Aberystwyth. These are just a few of the records which I and other members of the Welsh Mills Society are making and using. We contribute our records to COVLANE, the online record of the National Monuments Record for Wales, and our wider researches will be deposited with the Royal Commission in Aberystwyth. Here are some useful links for some of the items which I have mentioned. Thank you.